"Ma'am, you need to step back. This area is for private clients only." The security guard's voice was low, firm, rehearsed. His hand hovered just above his radio. His eyes never left the woman standing in front of him. Dr. Simone Carter didn't move. She stood tall in her navy blue suit, tailored sharp as a blade. Her natural curls framed a face that could sell out a magazine cover. Balanced, elegant, and unreadable. She didn't flinch. Not when 3 employees glanced her way with raised eyebrows. Not when the marble lobby of Freedom First Bank seemed to quiet around her. It was 3:02 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon in Atlanta. Warm sun filtered through glass walls. The leather chairs in the executive lounge gleamed. Every inch of the Midtown flagship branch whispered prestige, exclusivity, power. And yet, somehow, she was the one being treated like an intruder. Simone didn't speak. Not yet. A younger employee, a teller with pink lipstick and stiff posture, had already told her to wait over there with the regular walk-ins. A branch manager had followed that up with a tight-lipped smile and a request to confirm her account relationship. Now, the head of security was preparing to escort her out. Behind them, a college student in a Georgia State hoodie was filming everything, pretending to scroll on her phone. Her Instagram live counter ticked up, 12 viewers, then 53, then 209. No one knew yet who this woman really was. No one knew that in exactly 58 minutes, every assumption made in this room would collapse. Freedom First Bank would be trending nationwide. And the people standing in this lobby, so confident in their small authority, would soon find themselves answering to the very woman they were trying to dismiss. Simone Carter finally moved. She placed her briefcase on the marble counter with a soft, deliberate thud. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "You have 3 minutes, the manager repeated, smug. Simone tilted her head. Just slightly. 3 minutes, she echoed, her voice calm. That should be enough. Earlier that morning, Dr. Simone Carter had stood beneath the arched ceiling of the Georgia Women's Economic Forum, holding a microphone in one hand and the room's full attention in the other. Her speech, sharp, grounded, hopeful, had ended with a standing ovation. She spoke about legacy, about access, about building institutions that reflect the people they serve. Simone had driven herself to the bank afterward. No assistant. No entourage. Just her, a hybrid SUV, and a playlist of smooth jazz that she'd barely heard as she ran through board meeting slides in her head. The Midtown flagship branch of Freedom First Bank wasn't just any location. It was where her father, Clarence Carter, once walked the halls as a co-founder. Back in 1965, when black entrepreneurs were still being denied basic banking services, he and 3 other local leaders had pooled every dollar they could find to open a bank by the people, for the people. That same spirit was what Simone had inherited. She hadn't taken the easy path to get here. From a working scholarship at Spelman, to her PhD in economics from NYU, to 2 decades climbing the private finance ladder before being recruited back home to lead the very bank her father had built. And yet, here she was, being interrogated by a manager who had never read the names etched on the founding wall behind him. Being dismissed by employees who saw a confident black woman and assumed she was lost. Simone had always been measured. Not because she lacked emotion, but because she'd learned early that emotion, when weaponized against women like her, could derail careers. She knew what it was to be underestimated, to be questioned, to have her legitimacy doubted before she even opened her mouth. But today was different. Today, she wasn't just here as the CEO. She was here as a daughter, a builder, a witness. She glanced around the lobby, the same lobby where she used to sit as a child, legs swinging from her father's office chair, watching grown men in suits walk in and out like giants. Now those suits were surrounding her, oblivious to the fact that this marble floor had once held her sneakers, her science fair flyers, her dreams. And today, it would hold something else. Accountability. The silence was louder than the security guard's voice. Simone Carter felt it the moment she stepped into the premium client zone, the kind of silence that wraps itself around your presence, stares through you, and makes you feel like the subject of an internal poll you didn't sign up for. She caught it in the way the receptionist blinked too slowly, her smile polite but hollow. The pause before she said, "Can I help you?" wasn't hesitation, it was disbelief. "Yes," Simone had replied, offering no extra explanation. "I'm here for executive services." The woman's lips parted just slightly. "And, do you have an appointment?" There it was. Not rude. Not aggressive. Just coated in that smooth southern professionalism that hides the assumption. The unspoken message was clear. You don't look like you belong here. Simone knew that tone. She'd heard it at luxury boutiques, in corporate lounges, at car dealerships. It was always the same script, different voices, same eyes. The kind that double-check your shoes before acknowledging your words. That glance at your hands to see if your jewelry's real or costume. That flicker of curiosity that turns to concern when you don't act intimidated. This was what made bias so exhausting. It wasn't always violent or loud. Sometimes, it was just a sequence of doubts so subtle you almost questioned yourself. Almost. Simone had spent her life in spaces that didn't expect her. She had no patience left for explaining her presence. So, she waited. The receptionist eventually waved her toward the side, where standard service windows stood, clearly not where Simone intended to go. But she walked forward anyway, straight to the main desk in the executive suite. There, a young man, shirt pressed, tie a little too tight, looked up from his monitor. "Ma'am, this area is for private clients." His voice wasn't sharp, but it carried a gatekeeper's confidence. He didn't ask who she was. He didn't ask how he could help. He only asked her to explain herself. Simone offered a measured smile. "I am a private client." The words settled into the room like soft thunder. The young man blinked. His eyes narrowed slightly. He didn't ask for her name. He asked for her ID. And just like that, the quiet prejudice turned procedural. Simone nodded. If they wanted documentation, they'd get it. Just not the kind they expected. It started with a subtle shift in the air. A couple by the coffee station stopped their conversation mid-sip. A teller paused mid-transaction, glancing up from a stack of bills. The sound of Simone's calm but firm voice had cut through the low murmur of the banking floor like a chime in a cathedral. She wasn't shouting, but her presence carried. The way she stood, the way she spoke, the way she didn't flinch. By now, at least 8 people had turned to watch. And one of them started recording. In the far corner of the lounge, sitting on a full leather bench beneath a modern abstract painting, a young woman in a Georgia State University sweatshirt angled her phone just enough to capture the scene. At first, she was subtle, pretending to scroll, adjusting her AirPods. But when she heard the security guard say, "We'll need you to provide proof of your account standing," she hit the Go Live button. Her Instagram feed lit up with viewers, 17, 38, 105. And climbing. The caption said, "Black woman being profiled in bank lobby? Watch this." Simone hadn't noticed yet. She was too focused on the manager now walking toward her, shoes clicking sharply against the tile. He wore the kind of suit that screamed middle management trying too hard. His name badge read, A. Grayson, Client Services Manager. "Ma'am," he said with practiced authority, "we're going to need you to step away from the executive desk until you've been verified." Simone didn't move. The camera caught everything, the way she remained centered, controlled. The way Grayson planted his feet like he was preparing to block a door. The way no one in the room, not a single employee, offered her even a basic courtesy. And the comments started flying. "This is wild. She's so calm. I'd be furious. Bet she owns half the building." More people in the bank noticed the quiet spectacle unfolding. They weren't sure what they were watching, but they knew it was something. Something uncomfortable. Something that didn't look right. The camera panned slightly, capturing the nameplate on the wall behind Simone. Freedom First Bank, established 1965. Someone in the comments typed, "Google that bank. Who's their CEO?" The answer was 3 scrolls and 1 gasp away. The storm was just beginning. The air in the lobby had shifted from curious to tense. Even the plants by the window seemed to lean in. Manager Grayson adjusted his tie like he was preparing for a speech, not realizing how much attention he already had. Simone Carter didn't budge. Her briefcase sat closed, centered on the counter like a sealed declaration. She had said little since arriving. And that silence. It was getting louder by the second. Grayson leaned in, lowering his voice, but not low enough. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to know exactly what business you have here today." Simone's eyes didn't flicker. "I'm here for an executive account review. I have access to this floor." Grayson folded his arms. "Executive accounts are for verified clients. Major depositors. People with serious relationships with this bank. He looked her over, top to bottom. Not a glance, an evaluation. And if you'll forgive me, he added with the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes, you haven't provided anything that tells me you belong here. Simone's mouth curved slightly. Not a smile. Something else. I haven't provided anything, yet. Another employee appeared behind the glass wall, a junior analyst Simone recognized. A young man named Jalen. They'd crossed paths during a summer internship program Simone had personally helped relaunch. He locked eyes with her and froze. He knew who she was. But he didn't move. Didn't say a word. Grayson noticed the brief hesitation. Ma'am, he continued, voice rising now. I need you to understand that claiming false affiliation with a bank executive, or impersonating one, is a serious offense. Possibly criminal. So if you're trying to pass yourself off as... He trailed off, waiting for Simone to fill in the blank. She didn't. The comment landed like a slap. In the Instagram live feed, viewers exploded. She's not trying to pass as anything. She is someone. Dude's about to get fired and doesn't even know it. Simone reached into her briefcase slowly, deliberately. She pulled out a single business card. Thick stock, navy blue, embossed in silver. She placed it on the counter in front of him, sliding it forward like a chess move. Grayson didn't even pick it up at first. Just stared at it, like he couldn't quite process the words. Dr. Simone Carter, Chief Executive Officer, Freedom First Bank. The silence returned. Only now it was deafening. Grayson's jaw tightened as he stared at the business card. His eyes moved over the name once, then again. And yet, denial had already locked itself into his thinking. His ego couldn't process what his eyes were reading. This, he muttered, still not touching the card, this could have been printed at any office supply store. Simone didn't respond. She didn't flinch. She didn't need to. The student filming in the corner let out an audible gasp. Her live stream had crossed 1,500 viewers. The comments were erupting. Check the name on the wall behind her. He's still not getting it. This is turning into a masterclass in calm power. Grayson took a slow breath, trying to wrest control of the moment. Okay, he said. We've asked politely. We've been patient. But we have procedures. If you don't provide verifiable documentation, like account statements, executive credentials, or identification, we will have to involve security. Simone looked at her watch. 3:08 p.m. She gently reached into her jacket pocket and tapped a few buttons on her phone. One short message, sent to a private channel. Code black. Level 1. Initiate board protocol. Somewhere 40 stories above, a chain of actions had already begun. Grayson, unaware of the incoming storm, straightened his shoulders. I'm going to count to 10, he announced, voice louder now, projecting authority not just to Simone, but to everyone watching. Even the security guard, who had previously kept a respectful distance, stepped closer. Jalen, the junior employee behind the glass wall, was visibly sweating now. 10. Simone didn't blink. 9. The live stream ticked past 2,000 viewers. Someone was screen recording it for TikTok. Someone else had tagged a local news anchor. 8. Grayson's voice took on a rhythm. Calculated. Public. His eyes briefly scanned the watching crowd, aware that he had an audience. 7. Simone reached for her briefcase. 6. The camera zoomed in as she unclasped it with deliberate grace. Her hands were calm. Steady. 5. She pulled out her iPad, tapped the screen. The Freedom First Bank CEO dashboard appeared. Authenticated. Logged in. Her face. Her name. Her real-time access. Sia. The security guard froze. 3. Grayson's voice cracked slightly. 2. Mr. Grayson, Simone said evenly, turning the iPad so he could see it clearly. You may want to stop the countdown. He looked. And the color drained from his face. The silence that followed was thick enough to cut with a knife. Grayson stared at the glowing screen in front of him, the official Freedom First Bank CEO dashboard, with a verified photo of Simone Carter in the top right corner. Her name was there, bold and unmistakable. Simone J. Carter, Ph.D. Logged in. Full access. Internal systems. Executive control. It wasn't just a dashboard. It was a mirror. One that reflected exactly how wrong he had been. The camera caught it all. The moment his shoulders dropped half an inch. The twitch in his jaw as he swallowed hard. The way his lips parted, searching for something to say but finding nothing. The security guard stepped back, just a few inches, but it said everything. Jalen, behind the glass, lowered his head like someone suddenly embarrassed to be seen. The young woman live streaming from her phone whispered to her viewers, "Yo, she's the actual CEO." Her chat exploded. No freaking way. He tried to count out the CEO? He really said 10 like he was hosting a game show. By now, over 3,600 people were watching live. Local influencers were sharing it. A news anchor had joined the stream silently. One comment read, "My cousin works at that branch. They're all in trouble now." Grayson finally spoke, moist brittle. I didn't realize." "You didn't ask," Simone replied, her tone still calm, but now edged with precision. She didn't gloat. She didn't raise her voice. She just stood there, surrounded by marble floors and glass walls, like the very foundation of the bank was shifting beneath everyone's feet. Simone tapped the screen again. Now, the wall-mounted monitors behind the front desk flickered. Her dashboard appeared on them too, mirrored from her iPad. Every employee and customer in the lobby could see it. There was no denying it now. No spinning it. No hiding behind protocol. The name, Dr. Simone Carter, Chief Executive Officer, glowed from every screen like a signature written across the air. She stepped closer to the counter. "Come. Collected. This branch," she said, "is under executive review, effective immediately." The sound of her heels on the floor was the only noise as she walked toward the center of the lobby. And just like that, the power in the room shifted. Permanently. At exactly 3:14 p.m., the front doors of the bank opened. 3 people entered with a kind of quiet urgency that turned heads without a word. They didn't ask for directions. They didn't pause to look around. They knew exactly where they were going. At the front of the group was Evelyn Stone, General Counsel for Freedom First Bank. A tall woman in a charcoal gray pantsuit, her eyes sharp behind gold-rimmed glasses. Flanking her were Jared Singh, Director of Crisis Communications, and Tamika Riley, Head of Corporate Compliance. They walked in like they'd rehearsed this. Because they had. Crisis simulations were part of the executive protocol Simone had implemented herself 6 months earlier. The irony wasn't lost on her. The security guard recognized Evelyn immediately and stepped aside. Grayson, still recovering from the digital gut punch of the CEO dashboard reveal, blinked as the trio approached. "Miss Stone," he muttered, "stand." "Mr. Grayson," Evelyn replied, calm but clipped. "Please step aside. This matter is now under legal oversight." She turned to Simone and offered a small nod. "Dr. Carter, we received the code black alert. Full protocol initiated." Simone nodded once. "Thank you for moving quickly." Tamika had already pulled out a tablet and was reviewing the footage from the lobby cameras, which had been recording every second. She tapped the screen and began marking timestamps. Jared surveyed the lobby, already gauging the optics, number of bystanders, camera angles, social media chatter. His phone buzzed non-stop. Hashtags were trending. Media inquiries were pouring in. "We've got 5 outlets pinging for comment," Jared said under his breath. Atlanta Journal-Constitution, WSB-TV, and 2 national wires. "This thing's moving fast." Simone looked toward the student in the hoodie, who was still filming. Evelyn followed her gaze. "Young lady," Evelyn said calmly, "would you mind staying? We may need your footage for evidence." The student nodded, eyes wide. "Yes, ma'am. I've got the whole thing. It's already saved to the cloud." Jalen stepped hesitantly out from behind the glass wall. He walked toward Simone and stopped just short. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I should have said something." "You still can," Simone replied gently. "It's never too late to do the right thing." Outside, more people had begun to gather. Word was spreading. But inside, the atmosphere had shifted. The bank was no longer running on outdated assumptions. It was operating under new leadership. In full view. By 3:27 p.m., an emergency meeting had been called. The executive boardroom on the 40th floor of Freedom First Bank's Midtown Tower buzzed with unease. The long, polished table, usually a space for quarterly forecasts and investor briefings, now braced itself for something far more urgent: accountability. 12 board members sat in place, some flipping through preliminary reports, others staring into the middle distance. The windows behind them revealed a stunning view of Atlanta's skyline, but no one was admiring it. Simone Carter walked in without a word. Behind her, Evelyn Stone, Tamika Riley, and Jared Singh. Simone took her seat at the head of the table. Not with drama, but with intention. She placed her iPad in front of her, tapped twice, and cast the video feed onto the 70-inch monitor mounted on the wall. "Before we begin," she said evenly, "you need to see this." The security footage played in silence. Every word, every pause, every look of suspicion. From the first moment Simone entered the bank lobby to Grayson's countdown, the room watched in grim disbelief. Simone's voice never rose once on the video, yet the weight of what had happened pressed down like a storm cloud. The video ended with the moment her CEO dashboard lit up the monitors. No one spoke. Finally, board chair Daniel Royce cleared his throat. This is a disaster. "It's a systemic failure," Evelyn said without hesitation. "But it didn't start today. Today was just the moment it got caught on camera." Tamika stepped forward. "We've identified multiple internal breakdowns, training gaps, cultural blind spots, and a pattern of gatekeeping that's been allowed to fester." Simone looked each board member in the eye. "This happened on our watch. On my watch. I own that. But now, we decide what we do about it." Daniel leaned forward. "Do we know how far this has spread?" "3 news outlets have already contacted us," Jared added. "Social media exposure is hitting national levels. If we don't act now, this becomes more than a scandal. It becomes our brand." Simone tapped her iPad again. 3 action plans appeared on the screen: minimize, reform, and transform. "We have 3 options," she said. "Only one of them aligns with our mission and our future." She looked around the room once more. "This isn't about optics anymore. This is about who we choose to be when no one thinks we're watching." By 4:02 p.m., the story had reached every major media desk in Atlanta. At the corner of Peachtree and 10th, satellite vans began pulling up to the sidewalk outside Freedom First Bank. Reporters stepped out with tripods and cameras in hand, their producers already feeding them live updates through earpieces. WSB-TV broke the story first on air. Allegations of racial profiling at local bank. The CEO was the one profiled. Then, Channel 2. Then CNN picked it up through affiliate footage, slapping the headline across the bottom of the screen. "Bank CEO mistaken for fraud. Live stream footage goes viral." The footage from Instagram had now been downloaded, stitched, and edited into news packages running coast to coast. Twitter threads with screenshots, comment analysis, and quotes from the live stream had already reached over 2 million impressions. Outside the bank, a growing crowd of onlookers stood on the sidewalk, many holding their phones in the air, recording the recording of the recording. Signs were appearing, handwritten, hurried. "We stand with Simone. Leadership looks like her." Inside, Grayson had been quietly escorted off the premises. HR had already begun his formal review process. His statement to the press, if he gave one, would have to go through legal. Simone stayed upstairs. She wasn't hiding. She was preparing. Evelyn Stone coordinated with media relations. Jared Singh crafted a press release that would go out within the hour, built around 3 pillars: accountability, transparency, and change. But downstairs, the story had already written itself. At 4:17 p.m., a familiar voice crackled through the microphones being tested in front of the bank. Mrs. Althea Daniels, 76 years old, a Freedom First customer since 1972, stepped forward and looked directly into the Channel 7 camera. "I've banked here longer than some of these managers have been alive," she said. "And I've never seen anything like what happened to Dr. Carter today. It's not just raw. It's shameful." The reporter asked, "Do you know Dr. Carter personally?" Althea smiled. "Her father approved the loan that helped me start my bakery in 1980. You tell me if I know her." The anchor nodded slowly, letting that line hang in the air. In that moment, the camera wasn't capturing a scandal. It was capturing a reckoning. By sunrise the next morning, the headlines had shifted. What began as a viral embarrassment had become something else entirely, a case study in real-time transformation. Simone Carter didn't disappear after the cameras left. She didn't retreat behind press releases or let legal handle the narrative. She stood in it, faced it, owned it, and then she got to work. At 9 a.m. sharp, every branch of Freedom First Bank across the country received a confidential executive memo. It wasn't drafted by the legal team. It wasn't corporate fluff. It was from Simone herself. Subject: we begin today. The memo laid out Phase 1 of the Carter Initiative, a multi-step overhaul of internal culture, training, and accountability systems. Every employee, from tellers to regional directors, would complete 40 hours of bias training within 30 days. Not optional. Not performative. Mandatory. Measurable. More than that, Simone announced the creation of the F1 Equity Desk, an internal department dedicated solely to monitoring service fairness, collecting anonymous customer feedback, and flagging patterns of inequity in real time. And then, something unexpected. Simone launched a mobile app, ClearPath, a digital tool allowing customers to report experiences of bias or mistreatment instantly, with options to attach receipts, audio, or video. Every report would go directly to a special review board, half executives, half members of the community. Within 24 hours of launch, the app had been downloaded 18,000 times. But Simone didn't stop there. That afternoon, she held a town hall at the Midtown branch, the very place where it all started. Customers, staff, community leaders, all invited, all encouraged to speak. "We can't fix what we won't face," she said into the mic, standing in the center of the same marble floor where she'd been told to leave 24 hours earlier. "So let's face it. Together." A young employee raised his hand, visibly nervous. "What if we get it wrong again?" Simone smiled gently. "We will. Sometimes. But we'll keep trying. Because the worst thing we can do is pretend it never happens." There was no applause. No dramatic music. Just silence. A respectful, collective silence that, for once, didn't feel oppressive. It felt like the beginning of something new. A bank wasn't just a place that held money. Under Simone Carter's leadership, it was becoming a place that could also hold trust. And build it, transaction by transaction. The transformation didn't stop at training manuals or policy memos. It went deeper, into the bloodstream of the institution. Simone knew that real change couldn't be top-down alone. It had to be lived, modeled, reinforced. So she rewrote the culture code. Freedom First Bank adopted a new internal compass, 3 guiding values printed on every employee badge, framed in every break room, embedded into every review. Clarity, courage, tear. Clarity meant understanding that every customer, no matter their appearance, deserves transparency and dignity. Courage meant speaking up when something felt wrong, whether you were an intern or an executive. And care. It was the reminder that banking was, at its core, about people, not just numbers. Simone also introduced peer review circles. Small, diverse teams that met monthly to discuss not just financials, but behavior, how colleagues showed up, how customers were treated, what subtle moments made the biggest differences. These weren't performance checklists. They were accountability communities. The results came fast. Not because of pressure, but because of pride. Tellers began staying late to help non-English speakers navigate forms. Branch managers started shadowing frontline staff, not to supervise, but to understand. Regional directors hosted community meetups in local libraries and coffee shops, rebuilding public trust, face to face. And something shifted. Customers noticed. The lobby that once held tension now echoed with hellos. With conversations. With care. The young employee who once stayed silent behind a glass, Jalen, was now mentoring new hires on empathy-based service. He wasn't afraid to speak anymore. Because Freedom First Bank had become more than a financial institution. It had become a place where transformation wasn't a one-time event, it was a daily practice. And Simone Carter? She didn't just lead the change. She lived it. Dignity is one of those things you don't always notice, until someone tries to take it from you. It doesn't wear a uniform. It doesn't shout. It walks in quietly, holds its head high, and speaks with intention. That's what Dr. Simone Carter reminded us. When she was asked to leave the very bank she led, she didn't yell. She didn't crumble. She stood still, calm, composed, unshakable. She let the silence tell the truth louder than words ever could. And in doing so, she showed us something powerful. Dignity isn't about being right. It's about responding with integrity when everything around you tries to deny your worth. She could have taken legal action and disappeared behind closed doors. Instead, she faced the moment, transformed it, and brought everyone with her. That's leadership. That's legacy. So what do we learn from her story? We learn that justice isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's a quiet woman in a blue suit placing her badge on a marble counter. Sometimes, it's choosing to build instead of destroy. Sometimes, it's being underestimated and still showing up anyway. If you've ever been in a room where you were treated like you didn't belong, if you've ever had your qualifications questioned because of your skin, your accent, your clothing, or your last name, let this story remind you. You don't have to raise your voice to raise the standard. You don't have to carry anger to carry change. And when your dignity is tested, don't defend it with fear. Defend it with truth. Because the world doesn't change when we shout. It changes when we hold our ground and let the facts speak for themselves. If this story moved you, speak up. Comment below with your story. Your voice matters more than you know. And if you believe in a world where leadership looks like dignity, not dominance, subscribe. Share this. Let someone else hear what respect truly sounds like. Because the quiet ones, they're the ones who end up rewriting everything.